Last Epoch won. Diablo 4 completely destroyed itself. Path of Exile 2 pretty much did the same exact thing, to be honest. Oh, but it actually made it. But no one cares, Sunshine. No one cares. Last Epoch's expansion released, and now everyone is happy. No one cares about your opinions any longer. Man, it's almost like Last Epoch is just applying that Valve method, like aka do literally nothing and wait until the competition shoots itself in the foot. Nice.
Jeez. One is on a hot streak, one is in crisis mode, and one is saying, trust us, we got a 10-year plan. Last Epoch just launched Season 2, and it's hitting all the right notes. A smooth launch, glowing community sentiment, solo-friendly systems. A lot of Path of Exile 2 refugees are having a great time. Meanwhile,
Bro.
PoE 2 is deep in what can only be described as a loot-based existential crisis. The devs are patching quickly, which is great. But if nobody's getting dopamine from monster drops, are we even really playing any RPG anymore? Then there's Diablo 4, quietly trucking along with a roadmap that left players scratching their heads asking, that's it? But Blizzard says more is
Diablo 4's roadmap did not leave players scratching their heads. It was horrible, it was useless, it was painful, it was, well, to be honest, exactly what you expect from Blizzard as a company in general. So, I guess expectations met once in our lives?
coming, and apparently they're taking a look at the skill tree and endgame. Outside the RPG world, Baldur's Gate 3 dropped one final massive patch before riding off into the sunset. Bungie finally revealed Marathon and immediately got roasted for it. And a long-rumored Oblivion remaster basically leaked all over the internet just in time to overshadow Skyblivion's 13-year fan project. Oh, and apparently the Mass Effect and Dragon Age teams at BioWare hated each other, which kind of explains a lot. It's a big week in gaming. We'll cover all those stories and more as we dive into this news roundup. But before we dive into everything, we'll start with some season.
No.
So, starting with Last Epoch news. The launch of Season 2, Tombs of the Erased, has been kind of a banger. And by kind of, I mean
True?
totally and completely. Not only did the servers hold up shockingly well, yeah, we did get some LE52 errors for the first hour or so, but as far as ARPG launches go, okay, it was relatively smooth. But on top of that, player sentiment is glowing for a lot of ARPG players. Last Epoch is bringing the fun back to the genre.
There's so much new stuff, honestly, since I last played. It's kind of insane. It's so good. There's so much random, just MacGuffin things that you find in the game while doing normal stuff, doing the campaign. Uh, the ascendancy now is super fast, which is very nice.
For solo players, Last Epoch might just be the most welcoming ARPG out there right now. There's
Now, granted, again, my complaints about Last Epoch, one of the complaints is still ongoing. I play a necromancer, okay? How painful it is to play Blood Drip on level goddamn 1 is just words cannot express, okay? If you're a true gamer, you're not using Drip level 1. You're getting all the monsters in one big pile, and then you're just swinging your swingy thing.
a system called the Circle of Fortune, which is essentially a solo self-found guild that lets you still play with your friends. It's built from the ground up for that experience. Target farming, curated loot paths, and zero pressure to trade or party up. People who haven't played Last Epoch since launch, or new players altogether, are enjoying breezing through the campaign, running into loot lizards and nemesis
Yes,
mobs and the new
yes,
champion mobs,
yes.
which all add spice and excitement to the different zones as you're going through the campaign. Shrines feel amazing in Last Epoch. They really juice them up. Every shrine feels fun and meaningful. Leveling is fast, it's impactful, it's full of loot that actually matters. I get crafting materials in great enough abundance to feel like I can actually consistently craft throughout the campaign, but I'm not drowning in them to the point that I feel I have infinite resources. Everything is just always in the Goldilocks zone. I've heard some people question whether the campaign is too easy.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this. It seems the rate where you get beginner friendly uniques and set items and whatnot has been pretty juiced up, honestly. Every couple of I don't know, every couple of 10 minutes, I feel like playing the campaign, you get some kind of legendary drop or something like that, which is pretty nice, honestly. Which is pretty nice. It's not too often, and it still kind of feels special, which I very, very, very like.
Look, is it too easy if you're following a build guide that has been theory crafted by a top player in the game? Is it too easy if you are following the meta powerful builds?
Yes,
Yeah,
probably.
probably. Is it too easy for someone playing blind putting their own build together? Is it too easy for a new player to ARPGs?
Arguably, maybe. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Maybe someone gets baited into a bad beginner.
Probably not. Ultimately, Last Epoch sits in a nice place between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2. It's that Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, it feels just right. PoE 2 makes you struggle too much, D4 is too effortless, and Last Epoch is currently hitting the right balance of progression pace. At least initially,
True.
we'll see in a week once people are deep into the end game, but the experience Last Epoch gives you, at least during your first couple of play sessions, is just plain fun and enjoyable. Concurrent player counts on Steam peaked at 150,000, and I expect us to see this weekend top that number. The all-time concurrent player count peak for Last Epoch was 265,000 14 months ago. That was at launch. So still being able to bring back over half your launch numbers
Ooh, that's good because I never checked it first. That's nice.
over a year ago. That's really good. Last Epoch also reached the 5th best-selling game on Steam this week, so Season 2 is also bringing in a lot of new players. Now, we've previously spoken about all the new content and big
Granted, again, the same way that the most well, in this case, it's the second most selling game. The same way that the first selling game didn't matter for abysmal trash like Assassin's Creed Shadows and whatnot because it's competing with nothing. This doesn't really matter a lot for Last Epoch. Also, let's be fair about this, okay?
changes coming with Season 2, but there were a few more things that didn't get covered during Hype Week. Direct peer-to-peer trade was removed from the game. The devs said that people rarely used it and instead used either the gift feature within parties to basically mail items to their friends, or the trade house bazaar to buy and sell items without needing to interact with another player at all. Instead,
Base.
P2P trading was mostly used for real money trade like gold sellers, so good riddance. And for the bazaar, they added a 15% tax paid for by the buyer. They added this as a gold sink. It's something we've seen historically successfully added in many games, economies over the generations of games. And I know that sounds like
I'm sorry. In which world where you live in, these types of money sinks actually work? They didn't even work in Runas. Flipping still works.
a bad thing superficially, but it really helps keep the economy in check and stop runaway inflation. Also, the devs are clearly listening to the community. For instance, they were initially against allowing mastery respecs, like very firmly opposed
Just hit the empower button. You already empowered once.
to it, but the community wanted it, so they gave in. Now, one thing added to the game that isn't perfect, still very good, they've added WASD movement, again, which is great. And they did clarify that it is currently in
Oh, I completely forgot about that. That's nice. I want that.
it's an experimental feature for now. It does not feel quite as smooth as in PoE 2, but I'm glad that they added it. I've been using it, and I'm sure they're going to keep working on it to help smooth it out. Oh, quick reminder, folks, either grab a loot filter or configure your own. You can configure your own in-game, no need for third-party tools or a degree in coding or anything. But let's hear from you folks. If you've been playing Last Epoch this season, what's been your favorite change so far? Or if you haven't tried it yet, what's holding you back? All right, over in Path of Exile 2 news, things are
Yeah.
complicated. Patch 0.2.0f dropped with a bunch of quality of life improvements. You can now respec your Ascendancy class. We got new stash tab affinities. Stuns on players were toned down. Belts, level 30 and above, now implicitly have charm slots. Pinnacle bosses at difficulty 0 offer unlimited respawn attempts. All these are great changes. This was a good patch that addressed things that players have been talking about.
The PoE players that are going to be as far as I understand, a lot of VOE players are mad about the fact that people get to try and learn a boss fight without needing to farm the materials for the boss for 15 years. I think that's good. Okay, people who follow like meta builds and the strongest shit, they don't give a shit about that. Let's be real, okay? Because the strongest builds are gonna literally like destroy most pinnacle bosses at this point. But people who don't do that, that's really useful for them. That's a great change.
About almost since launch in many cases. And I want to stress before going on, it's really great that the devs are deploying these rapid patches. This is what early access is all about. Now, that said, these changes, while good, again, are not distracting players from the core issues right now. Recent Steam reviews had rebounded to mixed after last week's couple of patches, but they're now back to mostly negative. The current state of the game has been called by some players tedious.
It's the vision.
It's been called joyless, hostile to casuals. You want to try a fun off-meta build like a bleed ritualist? Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, hostile to casuals now is not necessarily a bad thing. Theoretically, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, all of these things are also hostile to casuals, but they kind of still popping off.
Good luck. Unless you're using one of a very few specific builds, progression just crawls. Attribute requirements are so strict that it makes hybrid attribute builds incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to pull off.
Yeah, that's just honestly dumb.
Passive tree just lacks those big juicy attribute nodes that really helped fill in the requirements in PoE 1. I've seen PoE 2 described as a game in which you're just managing downsides. Every good thing comes at the expense of something else. You're not building around optimizing strengths, you're building around mitigating pain. It's like the game punishes you for wanting to have fun. Armor makes you slower. It's also less useful than Energy Shield because it doesn't defend against everything.
The best last Epoch meme is where people are saying, "Okay, you see an armor node in the last Epoch, get it? In the last Epoch, it does stuff, unlike in Path of Exile 2.
That Energy Shield defends against. Why does it have a downside if it's also the worst defense? If it's gonna make you slower, shouldn't it be the most powerful form of defense to compensate? Ascendancy trials are more painful and tedious than in PoE 1. They do appeal to a small portion of the player base.
God, I never understood Ascendancy trials. It's just not. I hate Ascendancy trials. Okay, it is what it is, boys.
Which is great. I'm fully in favor of there being activities in the game that target specific kinds of players. I don't think everything in the game has to appeal to everyone, but this is an activity that everyone needs to do. Like, core character power is locked behind it. You are forced to do it, and there's many players that don't want to do it so bad that they pay other people to carry them through it. Then there's also smaller things like, why aren't customizable loot filters built into the game at this point? You know, Last Epoch has raised the bar here by letting players build their own loot filters directly in-game. Why do PoE players have to rely on external resources or editing game files to set up a core function in the game? PoE...
The hell are you? Oh, shit. Oh, that's bad. That... Oh, that is not good. Oh, that is not good. One of those fucking black wasps. It was just casually going on my leg. God damn it. They bite and it's painful. I don't want that. But where did it go? I'm terrified now. What am I supposed to do? I don't see it. I don't want to put my legs down anymore. Bro, not cool. Not cool in the slightest. And I can just feel it going up my leg. Bro! Yo, this ain't good. Okay? Okay, this ain't good. Jeez. Okay, that was unexpected to say the least. Wow.
They were the trailblazers in
Ooh.
loot filters, and now they've fallen behind. But all that really is ancillary to what is the biggest issue right now. Loot is too scarce, including crafting currency. The game is clearly balanced around trade. You're better off spending whatever currency you do find on trading for the item that you need rather than praying to find a good drop as a base, or just wasting your own limited crafting currency
Division.
on gambling for a good upgrade, because it's always a gamble. And it's just not feasible to craft your way through the campaign. Alchemy orbs and exalts should be much more common. But even then, good bases to craft on just don't drop often enough. Ultimately, the heart of the ARPG genre has always been about the loot. Distilled to its most basic form, the fundamental allure is click on something, whether it's a monster, whether it's a chest, whether it's a barrel, whatever. Click on thing, get random loot drop. It's the absolute most basic dopamine hit there is. Combat is the fun gameplay built around that basic reward structure, but if you take the loot drops out of an ARPG, then you're left with something hollow. And right now, for a lot of players, there just isn't enough dopamine hits relative to the challenge.
Well, sucks to be you in honestly that case again. Dopamine hits, all fine and dandy in my honest opinion. You kind of need them, but uh, again, the point here is to be rewarded for progression and rewarded for being rewarded for patience. That is the fundamental thing. So yeah, it's not going to suit a lot of people, but I mean, in Bloodborne, how often did you use weapons? And again, all of these games, how often you did that? Not a lot. Not a lot.
Now, some people say, well, the reward for beating difficult content is the feeling of, pride and accomplishment you get for overcoming the challenge. That in itself ought to be reward enough. And I say no, not in a loot-based game. That works for Dark Souls. That works for other genres in which the core of the game is to overcome the challenge of the game. That doesn't work in a genre whose gameplay loop is exclusively about chasing rewards and overcoming the obstacles in the way of those rewards. It doesn't work in a genre that is all about optimizing the challenge out of the game as much as possible to make delivering the juicy loot to me as efficient as possible. In a loot-based game, there's an expectation that tackle big challenge, get big reward. And that reward doesn't necessarily have to be loot, right? Some kind of difficult
But if it's not loot, then you shouldn't be too upset about this.
ascendancy trial, for instance, locking character power behind it, that you can do that kind of stuff as well. But when you're faced with
Okay, saying the alternative is tendencies is kind of a little bit unfair here, I would say, but that's fine.
mandatory unskippable challenges in a loot-based game, and you're not given a reward thereafter, and well, now I'm progressing deeper into the game, and everything is becoming more challenging, and I am not stronger now because I didn't get any loot reward. It just doesn't work. Anyway, during podcast appearances, Jonathan said he'd look into the loot situation, and later on that they actually ran simulations and found that drop rates were not operating as intended. So people weren't just crazy, the loot actually was scarcer than intended. He also said on the podcast that he'd be open to streaming his own gameplay of PoE 2, something a lot of people in the community have asked to see the devs do, sort of
When was the last time the PoE 2 devs played that game? Never.
like, well, why don't you show us how we're supposed to be playing this game and whether it's actually possible to pull off these combos and all that. And honestly, props to Jonathan for even entertaining the idea, because that's really putting yourself out in the hot seat there. Not many devs would do that. Anyway, later this week, after much belaboring of the loot situation from the community, we did get word from GGG that they were going to address the loot situation. However, the way they're addressing it will be to improve loot on bosses and on Asmarian wisps, which is...
There you go.
I mean, sure, we'll take it, but it doesn't...
So, the thing here that sounds fishy to me, so it blatantly sounds like a lie, actually, at least to me, is the fact that they're saying, oh yeah, the loot doesn't actually work. But since the loot doesn't work, we're not going to just fix it. We're going to make it so it's specifically for on specific thing. So that to me tells tells me the story that they're just lying. The loot was working as intended, but they want to just slightly lather up the player base,
Really address the greater issue. Now, I do want to end here by
which is pretty smart at this point.
reiterating how great GGG has been throughout all of this. Being invited onto community podcasts during a time of hostility from a lot of the community, agreeing to do so, taking the time to do so during a time that they are exhausted from the grind to release the patch, continuing to put in the long hours to push out more updates as quickly as possible to address the feedback. The community really needs to understand that these are devs who go above and beyond. What other company that operates on the same level of size and success of grinding gear games does the same? Name me one. Look, we can disagree with certain design decisions, you can dislike the direction of the game, but you can't say that the devs are not passionate or that they don't care. And on a lighter note, some people have killed rogue exiles in the game and gotten swords and flails to drop. Yeah, like the item type that is not yet in the game yet, but is apparently in the game. You could grab them, you
I mean, yeah, the point of them is that they will drop the items they are wearing. So I guess, yeah.
can equip them. We have no skills that support them, but hey, it's nice to see that they're coming along. Anyway, folks, what do you think? Is Pee-wee 2 on the right track, or has the grind...
Now, to be honest, they're gonna improve the drop rate a little bit, right? They're gonna improve your the monster's HP or damage or whatever a little bit. They're gonna increase attacks for a couple of things, and I think for the most part, it's gonna be absolutely fine.
lost its shine? Sound off in the comments. On to some Diablo news. Next Thursday, we're getting the Campfire Chat for Season 8, which releases on April
Oh boy, that's not gonna be a disaster.
29th. The live stream will be on the 24th at 11 a.m. PDT. If you're wondering what Season 8 is all about, I've got this video for you here.
It's about boss powers, which is gonna make this unironically the best season of Diablo. But again, it's the best because it's the most unique. It actually is going to completely butcher build variety, probably. It's going to leave the game with less viable stuff to play than previously. But it doesn't matter because it's all new stuff that you can play. And this is the biggest change ever that we have had. If I would compare it to anything else, it would be probably Legion levels in World of Warcraft where people were actually happy about the expansion for once, not miserable. And that is going to be the next season in Diablo 4. Now, the downside of this, whatever the fuck they decide to introduce after this, is going to be an absolute disaster. Because these powers are not staying. None of the, this is going to be a borrowed power system that doesn't even, that does not get kept. And if it does get kept, it's going to be in such an absolutely nerfed form, most likely, that's going to not be worth it.
As a reminder, we got the Diablo 2025 roadmap reveal last week. Do check out my interview video.
Also, what great gameplay. I understand what's happening, and I think it's so, I don't even know what's
for that one.
I like this is bullshit.
And in the wake of the tepid community response to the roadmap, Adam Fletcher dropped a couple juicy tidbits on Reddit. He said, quote, "We've seen a bunch of comments and feedback over the last few days, noting that they believe the roadmap is a totality of everything that is coming. I do want to assure everyone that we are very self-aware of some of the items players are yearning for.
Yeah, this is just boring.
And I do want to...
There's no nuance. There's no nothing. You're just stunning your opponents, so they can't hit you because the game is so poorly balanced. The moment that they do hit you, you're insta-dead. Bad fix out too.
Confirm that we are looking at many of these items, including skill trees and adjustments related to that, endgame, and making that experience better for all players, and plenty more. The roadmap will get updated as we march through, and more of the items people are talking about will start to be revealed, along with all the details behind each of these updates. Skill trees, endgame. Now these are things that would have been exciting to see.
There is no endgame in Diablo 4. It's never gonna exist. It doesn't matter how many new pinnacle bosses you introduce, it's never gonna be endgame. Diablo 4's endgame is one-shotting the boss with 4 people in your party, no effort, no strategy, no nothing, and just doing it over and over and over again. When that is your end game, it might as well not be end game. Because end game is supposed to matter. End game is supposed to be impactful. But this is not impactful, and this does not matter. This is just one more chore that you're supposed to do tens of times in a row. Pretty shitty.
On the roadmap. Now, one thing we saw on the roadmap was an IP collab happening in Season 8. Well, it was revealed this week that the collab is with Berserk, the manga series by Kentaro Miura. It seems this collab
Oh boy.
is coming to both Diablo 4 and Diablo Immortal. We don't have any details, just a short animation and the words, "Trace the path of the Black Swordsman and you have been branded." Berserk is a critically acclaimed manga series set in a dark fantasy world inspired by
Critically acclaimed, kind of, a little bit not truly explaining the context and impact of Berserk.
medieval Europe, not unlike Diablo, and is well known for its violence and gore. I'm not familiar with Berserk myself, but it sounds like it fits. What can we expect from this collab?
Nothing. No one cares. No one asked. Whatever. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. Last Epoch supremacy. I love it. I love it, and I always will love it. Bye.